Human development can be looked at as stages, cycles, or the seasons of nature. Each level of development from infancy to childhood, to teenage, to the young adult, middle, the young old, and the old adult years is richly unique. At each stage of life, human beings need to carry out specific life tasks in a manner that propels the transcendence of the individual to higher levels of maturity and wisdom. This program on older adult development looks at the unique developmental tasks of older adults. In this program, you will learn how human development takes the form of stages or cycles, better understand the developmental needs of older adults, see the value of reminiscence and life review, learn from the wisdom of an older adult, become more aware of the influence of culture and society as part of human development.
I think that we don't think about our aging process as an integrated part of our life. Certainly, when we're very, very young, we don't think about getting old. We do think about growing up. And we do think about, girls think about having a prettier body, and boys think about having a muscular body, and we think about having more privileges as getting older. But as we reach our 30s and our 40s, we don't integrate that thought of aging and think about it and start to enhance it. And therefore, coming to our 50s, 60s, it suddenly arrives as a surprise. I'm older. What do I do now?
Aging necessarily is not fun as you grow old. We call it the golden age, the golden years. They're not always golden, especially when you have healthcare problems. 86% of our older adults have one or more chronic diseases. And the healthcare system is ageist. They do not understand. Most of our physicians and healthcare providers have not had any gerontological or geriatric education. Older adults receive less than adequate health care. Most of our older adults are women, and women worldwide receive inadequate health care. Labels cause downgrading of self-esteem, and this is really important when you deal with older adults. Example, the term elderly causes a lot of pain. It always paints a negative picture. I often have my students describe, when they hear the word elderly, write 5 descriptive words, and they're always negative. And you picture somebody that's frail, that's shuffling, that's hard of hearing, quote, senile, wrinkles, gray hair. So I try not to use the term. Dr. Robert Butler also does not use the term. He said that he tries never to use a word that causes pain to others. And I think that's a real good reason why we shouldn't use the term elderly.
The old kinds of roles that, or the roles that older people could fill in other cultures aren't nearly as accessible. In the Old Testament Hebrew culture, for example, when you reach the age of 50, that's when you finally got to sit in the gate and preside over problems that were happening in the city and with families. You earned your credentials as a crone or a wise sage, and those roles were extremely valuable. And we have a vacuum in our culture where our extended families are breaking down, and we really miss the wonderful, compassionate monitoring eye of older adults as they watch young grow and struggle and kick in their words of advice and encouragement.
Productivity is lifelong. Development is lifelong. It doesn't stop. There's 3.7 million grandparents raising their grandchildren. Over 50% of our households today are single women, and a lot of the grandparents are helping with those children as those mothers are working. And then plus, because of the drug scene, of the divorces and other problems, or society problems, the grandparents are actually raising children, and I'm one of those 3.7 million people.
One thing that I think is very special and unique in the Indian community is that there is a natural blending and continuum of ages at all times. In a lot of situations in non-Indian communities, you see separating out of ages, you see separating out of sexes, and that's something that doesn't happen in the Indian community. What you will see is just whatever event or activity is taking place, there is a whole continuum, as I said, of all ages. It's not uncommon for when a young professional that's in her early 20s and has a child and going to a conference, for her to bring both her child and maybe a grandmother or an older aunt, that's also part of the household with to the meeting. It's just a natural occurrence, not an interruption, but just a flow of things.
One of the important developmental schemes of late adult life is in the Eastern culture. I find it fascinating that from the age of 0 to 20, that's when you get to go to school. From the age of 20 to 40, that's when you start making a living and getting an education. From age 40 to 60, that's when you start studying spiritual disciplines, and then from age 60 on, you get to cast it all off and become free. In Hindu philosophy, that person's called a sannyasi or a renunciant. But at that point, then a person has matured and ripened to the point where they know the relative value of everything and are able to cast those things off and focus on really the deep freedom that life has to offer.
One of the best ways to learn about older adults is to listen to them tell their life stories. Greta Spindler is 98 years old and copes daily with the stresses associated with the health and psychosocial changes faced by many older adults who live that long.
Greta, you've said that it's different to be 98 years old. What do you mean by that?
Because you think differently when you're old, differently. And when you're visiting with younger people, they don't see the things you see and that you enjoy.
I bet that's true.
They enjoy other things. I enjoyed those things when I was young, but now when I'm old, I have my special things that I enjoy. I sit here and look out at the beautiful hillside and thank God for giving us such a beautiful world to live in, and to try to make the most of it every minute. I just meditate. I don't dwell on myself and my problems. I try to think of better things, trying to make the day a good day. Sometimes I wish I was younger, and I wished I had done a lot of things I didn't do. You know, you think about the past, and then you have the future to think about. I wish I had been a great musician. I love music. But I appreciate music.
So you love music and you appreciate listening to it.
I love good music. I especially like grand opera.
You love opera?
And I have attended opera, and it's wonderful. The singing and the acting and the story. I just love grand opera.
Now what about your longtime friends and family?
Well, you see, they're all gone. I have no real close friends left. And my family is mostly my brother's children. He has 2 nice daughters, and they come to see me, and we have a nice visit.
Do they live near here?
Yes, they live in Duluth.
So they see you often?
Quite often, and they're real busy girls.
And then you have your daughter.
And then, of course, she's away, thousands of miles away.
Your daughter is?
In Florida, Orlando. We talk on Sunday. Ever since she left Duluth, we have set aside an hour on Sunday to visit.
Do you miss your parents?
Well, you know, that happened so many years ago that you miss them at first, but you gradually get accustomed to not having them. You can get used to anything if it lasts long enough, I think.
I see.
And they were old and frail, and, you know, now like with my mother, she just went to bed and went to sleep. That was it. Wasn't that beautiful?
It was, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm. And she lived with one of my nieces. And my niece went up to see her, and she was just didn't wake up. We were grateful.
I imagine so. I would be too.
Yeah. She was old and frail, and didn't have much to live for. You know, that's the way it is when you go old. It's just like with me, I'm old, I don't know, I have a great deal to live for. But make the most of what you've got, is my philosophy.
That's a great philosophy,
Yeah.
Greta. Do you think about your family and your parents when you were young?
Oh, yes. I think the older you get, the more you think about when you were young and your parents.
That's what I've been told by many older people.
Yeah.
What do you remember best about your days when you were young?
Well, I think that I remember when we were all at home and we lived in a big house and we had, I think it was 4 bedrooms, every bedroom occupied with 2 or 3 people. My sister and I had a beautiful big room, and the 2 boys, the 2 rooms together, and 2 boys in each of the rooms. My mother and father down on them. There was a bedroom on the main floor, so he was away from all this rest of it.
Sounds like it was just perfect.
We had lots of fun. My mother was a good cook, and she, the kids would be hanging around the kitchen when she would be cooking a meal, and she'd say, "Well, now leave me alone, and I'll get it done quicker."
Do you remember some of your favorite things that she made?
I remember pancakes. Isn't that funny? We had a stove with 2 lids that you could take off, and then she had a pan that fitted into that, and it filled in that area, and she could make about 6 pancakes at a time, and they'd be gobbled up as fast as she made them.
Now, I remember you telling me that when you were, I don't know, 18 or so, that World War I was going on, and you ended up taking a man's job
At the express company, for the express company, Railway Express Company. At first I did some work in the office, and then I went out and collected, if you know what that is. People would send express prepaid, and I'd go to the offices and collect the prepaid, the money I'd have the bills. I was called a collector.
So you were the collector.
And I liked it. I met so many nice people.
I bet you were good at that.
Oh, I don't know. I was happy with it. I know when we were married, the people, Bridget and Russell, sent ice cream, individual molds of ice cream for my wedding,
Really?
a present. And the Duluth Floral Company made my wedding bouquet and my bridesmaid's bouquet. These were gifts from the people that I collected from. We went down to Lake Nebagamon one weekend with some neighbors that took me along with them. And he would, and we went several times. And then this lady, this Mrs. Spindler, a neighbor lady, said, there's a nicest young man I'm going to invite to go. And that was my husband. And we met that day. And then we saw each other. I wasn't too crazy about him at first, you know. I wasn't interested in getting married. And he was a wonderful husband. Oh, he was wonderful. And you know, I think his happy life helped him in his work, because when he got one promotion after another, he ended in the top of the department with an office in the Woven building. And I like to think it was our happy life that made him a likable man.
I bet it was. I bet your life with him helped him tremendously.
I didn't let anything interfere with his work. I thought that was very important. If he was tired, we didn't do anything. If he had something to do important, I said, well, we can make other plans. But his work came first. And he went to the very top in his work.
Good.
Mm-hmm. I was proud of him. I was living at St. Anne's. We were living at St. Anne's. And something happened. I fell. I might have had a heart attack or a stroke or something. That's why I'm here. And he died. I can't get that all straightened out in my mind.
That's all a little confusing.
That all mixed up.
And that was a while ago.
Oh, yes.
Now, what's happened to all of your friends?
Well, they've died. They're not living. And then I've lost contact. You know what? You don't want to think about that.
I see.
I don't want to think about that. Who died? Who did? Who? And I'm not in contact with any that are living, so I just don't think about it. That's why I listen to a lot of music. Takes my mind off myself. Oh, in the morning when I get to wake up early, I shed a few tears nearly every day. But maybe that's good.
I think so.
It's not that I'm lonesome, but it's not that I'm sorry for myself. See, that's the worst thing for people to do, to feel sorry for themselves. Maybe I'm lucky that I didn't commit any crime. I have earphones, and I can tune in. I put on the phones in the afternoon, and they pick up news around the city. I know what's going on. And then in the evening, there's music, and you know me and music.
That's wonderful.
More important than a lot of things. So I know how to manage.
I think it's important to understand that aging is different for everybody. What we see with Greta here is wonderful. There's she has had a way of pulling her life together and appreciating what has been in the past. But we all age a little differently, just as we age from 12 to 18 differently, or from 18 to 30. Depending on what our experiences are, our aging is going to be different.
Greta is a very gracious lady. She speaks quite a bit of her past, her life with her husband, the times they went to the opera, to the cities. She becomes very, very emotional about it. There's times I feel she's scared of growing old. She gets very sad about things that she can no longer do. It's very hard for her, very hard for her.
Aging is universal. Everyone is aging from the moment of conception, and this is one of the criteria that you use. I had one young woman told me one time that she couldn't imagine herself growing old, and I said, well, then you're going to die young, you know, that's the alternative. And aging is gradual. You don't kind of notice it, that it's happening, but it's happening every day, every hour, every minute. And then, of course, aging has a negative effect on the body function, as you can see with Greta. She can't do some of the things that she would like to do that she could when she was younger, although she's held on to appreciation with music, which is, you know, the good part.
She isn't worrying about her wardrobe or what she's going to buy her grandchildren. To her, probably values are mainly non-material and spiritual. I like the feeling of life is real, people is real, not the facade. I had the total sense of authenticity about this individual. And a non-self-centered worldview. Everything's more important than she is right now. She's in it, and she's projecting, but what's out there is so magnificent to her. I see that as hopefully a normal part of aging, getting out of self and accepting self.
What they do generally kind of withdraw themselves in spirituality. So what she's doing, Greta, in that and talking about, looks like more spirituality. It's a word in the nice sun is shining, there's a part of God or something. But in India, just like after kids are grown up, they just kind of resign themselves from the worldly things, and they put all their attention towards God and lots of, and community services and all, just like doing something for others, their focus becomes. And aging is like a part of life. They kind of look forward in a way. When they become grandfathers, they're happy, so.
The tasks of older adulthood discussed in this video include seeing new generations engage in the developmental process, facing changes in physical health, living situations, and support systems, grieving these changes, realization that death is inevitable, putting life in a new perspective and viewing life from the wise perspective of old age, balancing the review of past experiences and reminiscence with daily activities and productivity.